from the brain of Setai's Tech Adventures. What about putting a mismatched panel array in parallel? You know, parallel combines the amps of the panels but leaves the voltages the same. This is a 12 volt panel. This is a 12 volt panel. So you could essentially combine the 10 amps off of this panel via parallel with the 5 amps off of this panel in parallel, and then end up with a 300 watt array that's something like my H volt, which has a 15 amp solar input limit, would actually be okay with. That would eliminate me having these things go into 2 power stations. Because right now, this goes into Jackery or an oops, and this goes into the H volt. When I had the EB70 here, that would not work because the EB70 had an 8 amp input limit, but the H volt does not. So the only downside that you would have to kind of contend for is how well do the voltages match, because in theory, I've never tested this, they will either sag to the lowest common denominator or try and find some kind of equilibrium. But I'm gonna test it. Now, the only downside for me personally is where do I put my parallel cable? Because I can put my parallel cable here and essentially end up with the same dual cable setup. That could be ideal because that's what I'm used to, having the ability to move these panels independent of each other. Or I could put my parallel cable right on here or on here. Now, the two pros and cons or whatever of that is if this panel moves less, then if I run the main wire to here and just extend it to that one, then that gives me flexibility to move this one around more, you know what I mean, around here. But if I put the parallel cable onto that one, then every time I move that one, it has a mess of cables, 4 cables hanging off of it. Now, in theory, I could put another 200 watt panel up here. I don't see that being feasible because they're too big, but I could have this 200 watt right here and then a 200 watt go right here and just kind of like work it out, especially in the summer months, because the H volt can take at least 2 panels in series. But mainly this functions as a little ray of ingenuity to get more power into my H volt, which is a 2000 watt hour capacity power station. This panel right here was fine on the EB70. Most times I didn't even bother moving it outside of winter sun because winter's been kicking my butt with the angles. This really only works because these 2 panels share a voltage, both 12 volt panels, and the power station can take in up to 15 amps. There's not many situations that this will work in this particular instance. I can't see another scenario, and I've been trying to think about it. Another quick blip about this idea of having 2 200 watt panels here, it really wouldn't work because I'd have to put them in series, and once you put 2 panels in series, they act as one. Once one gets shade on it, the other one does not produce a whole lot of power, so that's extremely problematic. And I can't put 2 200 watt panels in parallel because the H volt has a 15 volt input, a 15 amp input limit, so it would end up being 8 amps plus 8 amps, which could work honestly. 8 amps plus 8 amps is 15. So putting them in parallel could work as well. All right, we halfway there. It's no longer just theory. I decided to go ahead and put the parallel cables in. Now I just need to disconnect these and pop them in. But first, I want to get this into position so I can start getting some of this good yelpa. Let's go see how much power my H volt is getting then. I'm gonna slide this over so it could get some sun because maybe I could get sun on this chair. All right, right now it's getting about 108. It's steadily increasing. Let's go put the other panel into position, and I should get about half of whatever this is getting. Both panels are hooked in. Both panels are angled up towards the sun. It is not a windy day, so I don't have any concerns. So let's go inside and check the power output. So now that both panels are plugged in, I'm getting like 140. All right, let's do some testing here. So the rich solar comes in at a voltage of 24.6 and the HQST comes in at a voltage of 21.6. No, that one's 24.3. That's voltage open circuit. Their other one, whatever that one's called, that one's 20 and that one's 18. So it's a difference of about 2 volts, which I don't really care about, but let's see what happens. I'm gonna take a measurement. It is not super bright out today, but the voltage should still be kind of what the open circuit is. For rookies like myself, voltage has to be measured in line unless you have some other type of tool or something. So I have to actually unplug these, and I'm gonna unplug these at the panel. I'm not gonna do the extension, even though that would be easier. It's not long at all. These cables are about like 10 to 15 feet, probably 15 and 20. That shouldn't be a problem, but I'm gonna do it at the panel anyway. Doesn't really matter which one you pop them into. So there, I hope you can see that. It says 23.35. So it's just about right at the 24 volts. It's like supposed to be 24 point. Yeah, I already said it. It's supposed to be 24.3. So let's check the other one. That one is sitting at 20.26. So now we know what voltage open circuit is. I'm gonna connect them back to their wires, and then we're gonna come over here and measure at the branch cable, not here but here, because this is where the two things kind of converge. So whatever the voltage does here tells us what the voltage is that's going into the power station. So what is your guess gonna be? Do you guess it's gonna equalize, or is it going to go to all the way down to 20 volts? So there you go. It met at 21.43 volts. That's very interesting because it didn't go all the way down to the 20. They essentially met in the middle. What has been my theory before is that maybe when you have multiple panels and one comes into the string and is lower, maybe then it degrades everyone down to the lowest common denominator. But every time I've done this with panels where it's just two of them, they usually meet in the middle somewhere. Now, what does all of this mean? Actually, someone was just on my comments on a video recently, like yesterday. They were talking about how putting them in parallel, they didn't use the words problematic, but maybe they did. And I don't see it. Like I suspected before, these things being in parallel, the voltages are similar enough to where we're just combining the amps and then having the profit of having all of that power going to one power station, a power station that can actually take it. I don't see the downside. And with this data that we have, I don't think there is any downside when you're in a specific situation like this where it can all work out. If you try to do something like this on like a EB70 or, you know, some other power station that's maxed at 10 amps, 8 amps, like my EB120, I cannot do that on here because it's maxed at 10 amps. So that wouldn't work. And here's a little visual of what it would look like if I had two of these panels in parallel.